Welcome back to Currency Highlights with Massabesic Gold and Silver. This week I am having a conversation with Dustin Whitty all about fancy serial numbers, so I hope you stick around for that. I am Dean with Massabesic Gold and Silver, and yes, I'm being joined by Dustin Whitty today. It makes me extremely happy that you're checking out my channel out of all the channels on YouTube, and I hope you do the same for Dustin. Head on over to @DustinWhitty on YouTube so you can watch his content. He's got great videos about fancy serial numbers, star notes, and more on paper money. He's got a wealth of knowledge about paper currency. It just is amazing. So check him out, and I hope today you put lots in the comments letting me know what you think of this video and other videos that I have produced. Let's get into it right now. All right, welcome everyone. I am Dean with Massabesic Gold and Silver, and this gentleman is Dustin Whitty. And we've been wanting to do this conversation for a while. We couldn't do it on Dan's channel, that's for sure. He does not like fancies.
No. The hatred that happens there. We've been trying to do this 6 or 8 months, I think.
I would say, yeah, it's been a while. But we wanted to talk about fancy serial numbers. So I thought, yeah, why don't we just jump right into it and let's talk about it. What is a fancy serial number, Dustin? I'll let you take the lead because you are the official on this.
Well, fancy serial numbers are with our 8-digit serial numbers. We're just going to use today's money. Yeah. It's a little easier to wrap your head around. The 8 digits that are given, they form some type of pattern or something unusual, like the obvious serial number 1. That would be cool.
Yeah.
That's a fancy. Then, we use the term repeater or the terms repeater and radar often, and sometimes we don't always explain it. But if you think of the word radar, radar is spelled the same forward as it is backward. And the actual English term for that is a palindrome.
Right.
You can do the same with numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there's 8 digits, and they're the same forward as they are backward. That happens about 1 in every 10,000.
Yes,
Yeah.
for the radar. Yeah, just a straight radar. Yeah.
1 in 12,000. Repeaters is where you cut those 8 digits in half. The first 4, it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, and the second 4 would need to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And desirability of things like that, it's all about, do you want to go down that road? And is there a collector's market? Of course there is. I mean, you and I are sitting here talking about it.
Right.
But it's not for everyone. It really isn't. Other examples of fancy ideas. You can have just low serial numbers in general. They don't have to be serial number 1, but I think we've had this discussion before. Anything 1,000, serial number 1,000 or below is very collectible and will demand a little bit of a premium.
Same with your ladder, right?
Yes. Ladder notes are just like it sounds, and they can go up or down. Where you have 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's your 8 digits right there. So I don't say it's endless, but it's all about how deep you want to dive into it, and honestly, nowadays it's how deep your pockets are too.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue to talk about the market because why are some fancies worth more than other fancies?
Well, in my personal collection, I've always focused on those notes that kind of have the awe factor, but then where there isn't another one, the large size fancies, or if we're talking small size, get them on a Hawaii, get them on a North Africa.
Yeah.
Get them on a funny back. I know I shared a funny back with you that's in your collection now.
Absolutely.
That's a radar, and those are stupid rare.
They are cool too.
They're so cool. They're one of those where if you have someone in the I don't know, in the hobby, and you can pull that note out, even if it's graded a fine or whatever, that serial number is like, oh my God, wow, this note is 100 years old.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're not printing the silver certificates like they are still printing the FRNs.
Exactly. But in answering the question, I've always thought if you're going to build a collection, you can build with volume if you
Hmm.
want and just get, you can go out and get 500 basic 3 and 4 digit radars and cool, there
Yeah.
you go. Or, and it's kind of where I am now. I feel like I'm, I might buy 1 or 2 notes a year at this
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
and that note might cost me $2,000 or three grand or something. But
Yeah.
is there another one? No.
Right. Right. Yeah.
What are you after?
Well, for me, I'm kind of boring, but at the same time, I'm trying to be as concise as possible. So when it comes to the fancies, I really like the zeros and sevens. But I do enjoy the silver certificates. The one you gave me, phenomenal. I actually purchased another one recently, that super radar, that actually was in your collection, and then went to market, and then
Right.
I picked
Right.
that up. I just think that's a fantastic note,
Oh,
because
it's
it is a
killer.
super radar, and it's zeros and sevens, and I have a $10 FRN with the
Yeah.
exact same serial number.
That
Um,
note has some character as well to it.
yeah, it does.
I would love to know the story on that note. Just
Yeah,
it's got some crappiness to it that's so
yeah.
cool, you know?
And that is very true. And this may be a little tangent, but for sure, because clearly someone saved it.
Yeah.
Clearly someone saw the serial number, but yet it's got stains.
Oh,
One of
yeah.
the top edge is like torn up. It seems interesting. I don't know if somebody just didn't care for a long time, and then it came to the right person, it came to that right person that said, hey, this is cool, I'm going to put it aside and save it.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a 35. Yeah, I think it's a 35D.
Yes,
um
it's a
yeah,
35D.
yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
an
so it's,
unusual series too. You don't see lots of 35Ds anymore,
well, and
you
it's
know?
really funny because I didn't know it until I purchased it. I have another radar in the
Mhm.
35D, but that's the narrow. That's the narrow, or the
Yeah.
FRN 1613N. And then the one I purchased that was in yours, the one we're talking about, the super radar, that one's the wide. So it's kind of like the perfect little collection for myself. I've got the 1613W and the 1613N. Both are radars, and both fit well into my collection.
Man, that's quirky. And see, that kind of goes back to you've got something there with having the wide and the narrow. I
Yeah.
mean, that's cool if you're
Yeah.
nerds like us,
I say, if you're a nerd like us, yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking it's like, dang, that is cool,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know?
yeah. Yeah. Well, and I even did a video. I haven't published it yet, but I will. Of showing the back on each note, because that's where you see the wide versus narrow.
Yes.
You can easily tell a wide versus narrow depending on the plate number, for
Yes.
that specific series. But and I forget what the numbers is where it cuts off to then become the narrow. But anyway, other nerds will look that up and put in the comments.
Oh, yes. Yes, you bet. Help us
But
out, nerds.
yeah, exactly. But I guess going along the same line, so we talk mostly small notes, and that's what I pretty much do, because I agree with you. Let's talk market, I guess, a little bit. Fancies that would fit into my collection is because at auction, at Heritage, even on eBay, the prices seem to be going really insane for FRNs that are printed in 2017 or printed in
Right.
2021. These are becoming $300 notes, and it's like I'm shaking my head. Like,
Yeah.
yes, they have a nice grade, that like they might have a grade of 66 or 67 or 68, but is the grade and the fancy really commanding that kind of money?
So so here's my hypothesis on that. It's actually twofold. COVID changed this hobby a lot.
Mm, yeah,
If my YouTube channel fired up during COVID because I was bored,
yeah,
and Silver Surfer's like, well, you commented on here, you had something, so show it,
yeah,
and it just kind of took
yep,
off from there. Well, I can tie that into think of how many people got into numismatics, coins or currency.
true, yep,
They didn't have anything else to do, and as humans, we're always educating ourselves if we know it or not.
yeah,
And if the whole country shut down and
yeah,
even 0.5% of the population got into numismatics in one way, form, or fashion, I mean, that's a bunch of people,
It is. Yeah.
And there's all these avenues they're going to take, whether it be in coins collecting toned coins or Morgans or
Right.
whatever, in currency collecting fancies, collecting gold certificates, large size,
Yeah.
small size. We can go on for days, but I really think that has changed the market because we've been doing this. I've been doing this 22 years now, and I've seen this. I hate to say a bell curve because it's not a bell curve, but it eventually will be. Think that people in the huge population of people that have got into it, they're either trying to figure out what they want to collect,
Hmm.
and there's something about seeing an MS-67. And you mentioned grade even before fancy serial number. Man, some people are going to go out there on those $10 FRNs. Tens are so cool, by the way.
They are cool. Yes. Yeah.
And, there's something about Alexander Hamilton that's just
Yeah.
awesome, and that's a whole nother avenue we can go down.
That's true.
Um, but, they see that $10 FRN in an MS-67.
Right.
And we know that that's not exceptionally rare. There
Right.
might be 30 or 40 of them, but they might throw a couple $100 at it. You throw in that fancy serial number on top of that, and
Right.
to a lot of people, it's like, wow, this is a one of a kind when it's truly not.
Correct. Yeah.
Especially on the newer notes. And that's when it comes down to education. And, there's no book on fancy serial numbers. There's no like price guide. There's some guides and some references and all that stuff. But
Right.
truthfully, I mean, we're in a very fluid market in something that can change in 6 months.
I agree with that, and an excellent point about COVID too. I think that's absolutely true. But I grant again, what you just said, I think really is so true that it is so fluid, and something that might be selling today at auction for say $500 might sell 6 months from now for $200 or less,
Yeah. Yeah.
depending on what it is. And it's really funny. At least this has been my experience. I don't know if it's been your experience or other people's experience, but I shop a lot of fancies on Heritage, and it's really funny. The $1 they tend to go anywhere between 250 and $500,
Hmm.
while $5 bills and $10, even some of the $20 are going for either the same price or a little less, which I find startling because the $1 bill hasn't changed. It's not going to change. But those small heads, like I picked up that super radar of zeros and sevens on a $10 bill, graded. I think the grade's 66 or 65. I picked that up for like 275 bucks when I basically paid the same price on the silver certificate that I bought that used to be in your collection. Now, granted, grades are way off, but I mean, like, it just seems like watching the auctions, those $1, even if they're from 2017 or the early 2000s with fancies, they still seem to be going at these higher prices.
Right.
And when I say, I guess I should also a little caveat, the ones that are like super repeaters or super radars. So why don't you
Yes.
talk? Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about that? What is a super repeater and a super radar? I think the super radar, there's 96 occurrences.
Yes,
I think that's
Super
what it
Radar,
is.
there's
Yeah,
96.
yeah,
So, we'll start with Super Radar. That's where you're gonna have just 2 digits used, first of all, and I'll just use the digits zeros and sevens because that's what you're into. So, a Super
yep,
Radar would be like 7 and then 6 zeros, and then another 7 at the end. So, it'd
yeah,
be 7 0 0 0 0 0 0 7. Or you could flip it and say 0 7 7 7 7, and so on and
yeah,
so
yeah,
forth. That's your super radar. And uh, I've always loved those supers. They're so cool. But even
yeah,
better, super repeaters, I think they really
yeah.
have that awe factor.
I'm still in the hunt.
Oh,
Can't
dude,
find it.
they're so challenging to find. And even I'll kick you up a notch here. Try to find one with a star.
Yes, that would be super cool.
And
Yeah, that would be.
on YouTube, my little icon right there is my true binary, my ones and zeros silver
Yes.
certificate with the star.
Yeah.
And that truly might be the rarest note in my collection when you're actually looking at percentages. Yes.
Because true binary super radars, true binary super repeaters are,
Oh,
and then
man.
you add that star, that's going to
Yeah.
be primo money.
Yeah. Yeah. So those true binaries, the ones and zeros, and it's called true binary because of binary code with computers,
Yeah.
and I wish I knew what all of them stood for and said and what numbers
Yeah.
they added.
Yeah.
My dad's all into that. He's a computer specialist, but I can't do it.
Nice.
But I need to show them to him. Who knows what
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
with the true binary stuff, those are the ones that always just really catch people's eyes.
Yeah.
Someone that could care less, they'll see those serial numbers and be like, "Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
wild looking." And I had one of my buddies tell me one time, because on that particular note I was talking about with the silver certificate, I said, "This is a true binary super repeater
Yeah.
on a silver certificate." And that they're like, "Well, how many other words can we tack onto that?"
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
truthfully, that's how you would add value to something,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
is is maybe you get the rotator comment or anything like that.
Right. When you can add things like if you have that radar or that repeater, or if you have a binary radar repeater,
Yeah.
it's like that. Now you're getting, like, as you said, the more words you can kind of tack on to that, does add a little bit of value depending on what people are looking for. But to me, I think that's a double-edged sword there, and I don't know if you agree with that, because what I find that tends to happen, there are things that are real, like a binary radar repeater is a real thing. But then you
Yeah.
find people that on eBay and other places that are selling things that they tack on little things, little names like uh, what is it? A mini ladder,
Oh god, don't get me
or
started.
um, or like a trinary,
Yeah.
or those types of things to try to add to the rarity when it's not.
There's a particular note out there that I've always thought, that's a nice note, but it's a bunch of crap with the way they have it
Yes.
advertised.
Yeah.
That note is worth, I don't know, 15 bucks, 20
Yeah.
bucks,
Yeah.
and they've got it for like
Yeah.
$250.
I was gonna say, yeah. Yeah.
And this is someone whom I don't know. I feel like it's someone that maybe has a pawn shop or something
Yeah.
like that. I seem to know everyone on eBay that I buy from,
Yeah.
and that's a good example of one of those notes
Yeah.
where it's like, "Come on, man,
Yeah.
put 30
Exactly.
bucks on it so we don't
Yeah.
think." I would go look at their shop, but I see that note and it just ticks me off.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, I've seen notes like that too. Or the mini radar. This
Yeah.
is another one that makes me laugh. So if you get like two or three zeros in the beginning, and then the rest of the numbers make a legitimate radar, but the
Yes.
full serial number is not a radar, so there is no such thing as a mini radar.
Yes,
So, yeah,
there's a couple of examples of legal tender 2s out there on
yeah,
eBay right now that have those or it'll say, like, close radar,
yeah.
you know? Right.
With that specific note, because of how they printed it, it's always going to lead with, I think, two zeros, right? Or something
Yes,
like that. Yeah, it's always going to
yes.
lead with two zeros regardless.
So we're talking the 100,
Yes,
the
that's exactly right.
66 100, and, yeah, 2 zeros lead every one of those.
Yep.
So if, those of you watching, even if you're not into fancies, if you ever see one of those things, especially with a star, and it doesn't lead with
Yes.
2 zeros, it's not real.
Yeah.
There are some counterfeits out there. I mean, I've seen the counterfeits where it's like MS-67s with the stars. I
Yeah.
mean, that that's a 3 or $4,000 note, if not more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is, they're fake. On the 1966 $100 legal tender, it's the Red Seal 100, and by the
Yeah.
way, if you know fancies outside of a repeater that I know of, and the repeater is 00310031. and it was on eBay for a long time, and they wanted like $800 for it. They knew what they had.
Wow. Yeah. Again, I watch a lot of auctions on Heritage, and it was a silver certificate. I'm going to be honest with you, I forget which year it was, but it was the a seven with seven trailing zeros. So your 70 million note.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and it was a great note. And I thought it was cool. I put a bid, and I put a stupid bid. I thought it was a stupid bid. I think I ended up putting like 600 and some dollars on this note.
Right?
The note actually sold for $1,692.
I was about to say that thing's
And
gonna approach 2K.
but see, is it worth it though? Is
Well,
it worth that much? Like, I guess it's well. But before, let me finish the story, and then
okay.
you can tell me how much you think it's worth. So I found the note again. It is on eBay. You can search it right now, and he would like $70,000 for it, and he'll ship it to you for $700.
Of course he will.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that. Like, so it's a 70 million. So you're thinking it's really worth closer to the $2,000 mark? You would go that
Yeah,
way?
so
Really?
any
Okay.
of those, the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70
Yeah.
million, and even the 80 million, it might be a little more, but
Yeah.
those well, I guess the 10 million it'll bring a premium too, but the prices of those, since I've been paying attention to fancies about the last 15 years,
Yep.
um, man, they've went up. I
Yeah.
remember going to the Memphis Coin Show. I was about 20 years old, 21, somewhere through there. Had a little money in my pocket, and I go to Memphis, and I'm just entering the fancy game, and there's a guy over there that's just got hordes of fancies, and he's asking like decent prices for these things.
Yeah.
And man, he had a bunch of silver certificates that were like 10 million, 30 million. He had those
Wow.
notes.
Yeah.
And I say a
Yeah.
bunch, he probably had 8 to 10 of these things.
Wow.
I could have bought every one of them for about $100 a
Wow.
piece. And I look at that now and it's like, those are $2,500 now.
That's crazy. I didn't really know that, as you can clearly tell. $70,000 and $700 shipping. So if it's available, folks, for you, if you want to go ahead and buy that note.
So here's what a lot of people do there, and here's why you're seeing that number. A lot of people, they like to always have that what if, what if someone
Yeah.
pulled the trigger on that? I'm going to make 70K.
Yeah.
But they have their personal collection posted on eBay and everything's for sale.
Yeah.
And when you see those just exorbitant numbers like that, that's what someone's doing. Granted, that's a little much,
Yeah.
It
Yeah. A
it
little
would
much.
make
Yeah.
more sense if it was 7,000. We
Yeah.
wouldn't
Yeah.
laugh as hard,
Yeah.
but 70,000, it's like I truly wonder if anyone's ever looked at that and been like, "Oh, I need to look that one up."
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I don't, yeah, I don't even, yeah, it's just, to me, it's beyond. It's just beyond. And
oh,
I
yeah,
thought I was being stupid with the $600. So you made me feel better. I wasn't stupid when I threw that bid
that's
down.
that's a solid, if
Yeah.
you could get one of those 10 million notes, 10, 20,
Yeah.
30. If you could get one of those notes for 7 to $800, you've done
Yeah.
very, very well especially if it's graded already and
Yeah.
really more mint state. You know what made that note go for that price? It being on a silver certificate really
Yes,
helped that.
trust me, that's one of the reasons why I was like, I'm willing to throw some money at it,
Yep.
because you're not gonna see it again. If it was an
No.
FRN, I don't think I would go as crazy for it,
Yeah.
because they're still printed, especially the $1, they're still printing them, obviously. So it wouldn't really matter the year, because they all look the same. A small head, I think that would be kind of cool. Like if you had a
Oh, yeah.
Lincoln or a Hamilton, like you said, or even on those higher denominations, that would be really cool.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I digress. But that was a funny one that I wanted to bring up, because it's true. You got to watch out for what you're buying, what's out there. Really watch the prices. So I guess the question is, do you have a favorite fancy?
Man, if I really had to pick one, Well, I gotta give you 2 answers. I can't pick just
Yeah,
one.
I was gonna say, yeah,
So,
let it go.
I
Yeah,
think
go do whatever.
I think fancies on unusual notes are very cool. I mentioned Hawaii and North Africa notes, and that's honestly one of the reasons I've went toward large size notes because it's unusual,
Yes.
but I think fancies, if I had to pick one, fancies on gold certificates
Yeah,
are
that's
just
cool.
they're stupid rare.
Yeah,
I have one on a $10 gold certificate. My buddy Greg has the other one,
that's cool.
and I think that's it.
Yeah,
On the 10s. There is a fancy on a $20 gold certificate, and I wanna say that note's like an AU50.
cool. How
Exactly.
about it? How about it? So you answered it in the way of notes, favorite notes with fancies on them. How about a specific fancy, like is like a
Mm,
ladder your favorite, or
I like,
radars your favorite?
I like super repeaters.
Super repeaters? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the super repeater and, a close second is the super radar.
yeah, yeah,
Anytime you see a note or a serial number, anytime you see a digit more than 4 times,
yeah.
it really will catch your eye, especially if there's some type of pattern about it. Saying that, the large size notes, those of you watching, get on eBay and type in large size radar or
Yeah.
large size repeater, and you're gonna find 1, 2, 3 of them maybe, and count how many digits are in the serial number. On many of
Ooh,
them, you're just gonna
yeah,
see 5 or 6 digits
that's a
because
good point. Yeah,
well, in that, they're asking, pretty solid money for those notes, and they're not as valuable as those sellers want you to believe because
right,
you could have 8 digits.
right.
And if you have a full 8-digit radar or repeater or whatever on a large size, that's rare.
Yeah,
Because your
yeah,
probability, if we want to run numbers, your
that's right.
probability gets up in the millions at that point.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that's very good
crazy,
point. Yeah,
but
because that's true. Because a lot of those large sizes are like that.
you're gonna find more fancies on the 1923 large size silver certificates and your Black Eagles, and then
Yes.
also your 1917 legal tender ones.
Yeah.
You're gonna find fancies on those, but man, you go back to like the Chiefs and the
Yeah.
Bisons and
Yeah.
those, while they're out there, people like you and I, we're not gonna be owning them
No, no, exactly. Yeah.
because
They're fun to
well,
look at though.
oh yeah, they're great to look at. There's actually a binary bison that
Really?
yes, it's a 6 or 7 digit. It's
Wow.
2442442,
Wow. That's
and
pretty cool.
that's super cool. And the last time that note came up for sale, it happened to be on Facebook.
Wow.
I know, it's wild, and that thing went for $17,000,
I believe it.
and
Yeah.
it's just it's so rare.
Yeah, no, like you, I love the super radars and super repeaters. The other one we haven't actually talked about. One of my favorites is the double quad,
Oh,
and I
yeah,
do
that's
have a
rare.
really nice. It's a 1950 $5 bill, and it's leads with four zeros, ends with four sevens. And
Yes,
I
yeah.
love that note. That note was really awesome to purchase, and I only paid like 300 some bucks for it with
Wow,
shipping.
that's a valuable note.
Yeah, yeah, because I forget double quads. I forget they're very rare, but I can't remember how many occurrences. It's like 80 something or something like
Well,
that,
in
or less
in a
than that. I
full
can't remember now.
oh, yeah, it's much less than that. In a full run of 96 or yeah, 92,000,000 or
Yeah,
whatever,
no, 81 occurrences. Yeah, 81
81
occurrences
occurrences, yes.
in 96 million. Yep.
96,000,000, yes. So less than
Yep.
100. It's
Yeah.
stupid rare. I've never got into double quads because it just didn't have the wow factor, but then
True.
my buddy Greg was like, "You do know how rare those are, right?"
Yeah.
And started throwing the numbers at me, and I thought, "Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Here's a hard one. Go try to find one on a silver certificate.
When I type that in, I can't even find ones that are other numbers.
No,
So
you
if
can't.
that, so like threes or fours or whatever, or if you're like threes and fours or sevens and sixes or whatever it is, it's I can't even find those on silver certificates. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I don't think I've ever seen one. So like, and when I say see one, I mean in an auction or in a past auction.
Mhm.
So they are incredibly rare.
Don
Yeah.
Kelly had one.
Oh, we did. Wow.
Yeah, Don was a big currency collector. Story on Don is he was a physics professor, and he's really into numbers and doing all that. Don passed away about 3 years ago or so. He actually set up a website, and that website, Don is known for national banknotes.
I was
Like
gonna
the
say he wrote the book. Didn't he write a book?
Kelly book is named
Yeah,
after Don,
yeah.
and he constructed all that, but he was into all sorts of stuff. I remember when I was younger getting on his website, and he had a double quad with 4 zeros and then 4 ones.
Wow,
And
that's
it was
so
on a,
true
yeah,
binary, and a double quad.
and it was on a funny back silver
Wow,
certificate. And
that's
he
cool.
was asking like, oh, I don't wanna lie to you, it was over $2,000.
Yeah, but that I look
And
them up. Like you're not lying. Like
no, and this is like
I don't see
2000,
them.
this
Yeah,
is like 2012.
yeah,
And I'm sitting there waiting for my computer to load because that's kind of bandwidth we rolled in with in 2012.
yeah,
And that would pop up, and I'd go look at that thing every week, and I thought,
yeah,
that is so cool.
yeah.
Because at that point, funny backs, especially high grades, I think it's like an MS-65 or something.
Wow, yeah,
Funny
yeah,
backs were my jam. I loved
yeah.
them.
It is true, like you're saying, like to try to find a double quad on your silver certificate, even the small size, is going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
While FRNs, they are still making them. You can absolutely find a double quad on FRNs. If you search eBay or wherever else, because I think it was Stu. I think it was Stu. He did a great video on showing on his strap searches of $1 bills how many. So you're getting a 96 million print run for each Federal Reserve for each series. So
Mhm.
you're talking about billions of notes.
Oh, yeah. Tons.
So let's talk about that. So like the modern FRNs, the fact that they
Okay,
are billions of them, and you're going to find a lot of fancies, and
that's
then some maybe
where
even top pops.
that's where I guess kinda talked at it about it in the middle, or no, at the beginning of this.
Yep,
You need to figure out what you like.
yep,
I love that you're in zeros and sevens. I was doing zeros and eights,
yeah, yeah,
and completed that. And it was funny. I got so many messages from people saying, "Oh, I'm doing this now too. What a great idea."
yeah.
And it's like, well, I got that idea from Silver Surfer. He did zeros and fives.
Oh wow,
Yes. And so that's a good place to start. I
yeah,
think if you want to get into the hobby, you're going to educate yourself on what you're interested in, and you're going to totally not look at stuff that you're not interested in.
yeah,
So why not go down that road? I mean, your brain and your hobby is telling you where to go, but ultimately, these new FRN notes, it things are more readily available. But like you
yeah,
said, the price of stuff, man, if I was going to spend $300 on a note, I'm
yeah,
finding a
yeah,
large size fancy.
yes,
I don't care what it looks like, and I'm gonna grade it, and I'm gonna put it in the safe.
yeah,
That's what I'm doing. I'm gonna spend 125 bucks on these new notes, even if they're a super
yeah,
radar or something,
yep, yep,
150, 175 tops
yeah,
on those things, and I don't know. I play the numbers. That's why
Y-
I've mentioned silver certificates a
Yeah,
dozen times during this. If you want to start getting into the stuff that is a little bit more unique and rare, silver certificates, heck, they only happened 70 or 80 years ago.
yeah,
They
yeah,
printed them to 1963 or
yeah,
62, I believe.
yeah.
They're still out there. They're available. You can find the radars. I've got 65 of them.
Wow.
65 silver certificate radars. And it's taken me, granted, like 15 years to get that many,
Right.
but that does
But
show that
still,
they are out there.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and there are certain, and just to put into perspective, like I purchased a $100 FRN from the monochrome series. It's a radar,
Killer.
and it has a I think it's a 66, graded by PCGS, and I paid $325 for that note.
Yeah.
Now, some people are probably like, "Whoa, that's a lot of money." Well, one, I purchased it because I purchased the same serial number on a $5, also from the monochrome series, also
Oh,
graded 66, I believe.
I see what you're
Um,
doing.
yeah, that was fun. But just in perspective, now I've watched $1 bills that are 2017 or 2021 go for almost the same or over the price of what I paid for that
Yeah.
$100 bill.
Well,
And I just don't get it.
going back to the COVID stuff, all those
Yeah.
people got into the hobby
Yeah.
and they started collecting $1 bills because it was the most affordable thing. So, man, if you're collecting fancies on ones, more power to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But, I've always thought a fancy on a 20, like especially an
Yeah.
old small head 20.
Oh yeah. Yep.
How cool is that?
Yep. That's
You
the one
know?
I'm missing. And I've been looking at a lot of 20s with the zeros and sevens right now because I have a 10, I have the five, then I've got some monochromes.
Yep.
But yeah, I want to get the 20 small head, and I'd love to find a 50. And I'm going
Oh,
to tell
man,
you, you want to
that's
talk
hard.
FRN 50s with serial with fancies are, at least in my experience, have been a difficult thing to try to find
Very
for what I'm
tough.
looking for. Yeah.
In my entire collection, the only fancy 50 I have is on a large size.
Wow. Yeah. I believe it because I just, if you go on eBay to find a true fancy, something that's a real fancy, I just don't see them that often.
Right.
And I shouldn't even say that often. I really haven't seen them. But let's talk top pop, because I do have a $1 bill that is a top pop. That is also a fancy. I don't think I paid an exuberant amount of money for it, but I didn't purchase it because it was top pop. It just so happened to be, and I had a
Right.
matching serial number for it. So I thought that was also cool that I had the same serial number on two different ones. But I did notice that it's a top pop.
I think you saying it the way you did, you didn't even realize it was Top Pop.
Yeah,
That right there kinda leads to what helps me drive home my thoughts on Top Pop, especially these new notes. Guys, if you get an MS-68, 69, even an MS-70, ooh, it really
yeah,
doesn't matter because,
yeah,
like you said, there's billions of them printed.
yes,
But
yeah,
if you go back to, like, let's say the 1963 series, or even, heck, we'll say the 1977 series.
yeah,
Let's just go back to 77. If you'll go back to that series, if you find an MS-69 in that, you're gonna get my attention a little bit more.
right,
Am I gonna give you $400 for it? Absolutely not.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Because the thing is, it's still just a standard 1 or a 5 or whatever from that
right.
series. And that's where I am, and, what I'm saying is not the gospel by any means, but there's
No, I
just
think
not
yeah,
there's
yeah,
not the market for top pop.
yeah. It's a little bit more like, hey, that's kind of cool. But like I said, it's kind of cool. It's
Yeah,
not. It's not
exactly.
really cool. You show me a top pop, say the Chief. There, you got a Chief that's a top pop.
MS
That's extremely cool.
Yeah, I think there's a 68 out there,
Yeah,
but, I've got this note right here,
yeah,
okay? And granted, I can send you a note or send you a picture and everything, but Dan had this graded for me. It is an 1806 5 gulden note from Austria.
Yeah.
All right, and it basically looks like a tiny little
Yeah. It's
Declaration
cool.
of Independence. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super cool. It's oversized and all that stuff. It is a VF30,
Yeah.
and it is the top pop.
Wow.
But do you know why it's the top pop?
Because no one sent them in.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
granted, this is about a $300 note,
Yeah.
but the thing is, this is not the only one. There's
Yeah.
hundreds more out there. But yeah, it kind of alludes to the whole I would love to have another 15 or 20 sent in to
Yeah.
PCGS because it would only increase or decrease the value of this, I feel like, if all of them grade fine or very fine under this, all of a sudden we have a little conversation to have. Does it allow me to retire at the age of 36?
Yeah.
No.
No, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
just one of those things, but if this is your I hate being in a hobby that ultimately, it's underappreciated by everyone 30 years and younger, or 40 years and younger at this point.
And we know the hobby changes, but you're right, and I think that's what a lot of us are trying to do with our channels is just to kind of let people know. I think lots of people have said it. It's probably not something somebody hasn't heard before, but we are really all curators of our collection.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that these are all museum pieces, but in a sense they are to us, and we are preserving the past, the history, especially if you're collecting US coins or currency, paper money. You are preserving it, and it is important because yeah, if everybody leaves the market and then this stuff just starts piling up, I forget the story. I forget if it was on Dan Channel or who. The CSAs, the guy that just found like a dumpster full of Confederate money.
Right,
Now,
right.
granted, I get it, but that's history. I'm not even a Civil War guy, but that's still history. To me, that's
Oh, right.
cool. And it's like they filled a dumpster full of it. Come on,
Mhm.
like you're just gonna throw it out because you're like, oh, is they're worthless. It's like, yeah,
Well,
but it's still history. I don't know. Anyway,
here's something I've always thought cool, and this doesn't have anything to do with fancies. It's just the
yeah,
history part of it.
yeah.
And we were going over World War One and the Treaty of Versailles and the impact the treaty had on Germany
Hmm.
because they had to like export all their resources. They took basically full responsibility for World War One,
Yeah,
and their money just plummeted.
yeah.
Hyperinflation hit, and those notes that were printed during that time, I'm sure you've seen them or you may
I have
own
some.
those. Yeah,
I
I
have
have to
some. Yeah,
say,
yeah,
dude, I have joking, there's like 300 of these things in
yeah.
there. What are they worth? About $1 a piece.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But
but still,
you know what they say? Some of them will say 20 million mark.
yeah,
That's history. 20 million mark wouldn't even buy you a chicken egg back then.
right. Yeah,
And just how poor that country was and why and everything. It all just ties back to history, and those notes are so dang cool.
they are cool. They are really cool. But
They're
you're right. Yeah, yeah. They are beautiful too. Yeah, yeah. No, it's so true. And I think, not to get political, but like there's so many people out there that are like, oh, this is the horrible time to be in America. America's going in the wrong direction, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care about any of that. And I'm not gonna read any comments about it. So please don't put any comments about
right,
it. But my point is that if you study history, you see how bad it was. And
yes,
we're no like people are complaining right now because it's costing $8.99 for a dozen of eggs and you can only buy one at a time.
right. You buy
Now,
2 down here in the South, let me tell
oh,
you.
you're lucky. You're lucky.
We're
We can
high
only buy one
rollers.
up here. But the hilarious thing, Dustin, is you can only buy one at a time. There's no one policing it that's gonna if I go out to my car with my dozen and then walk back in and buy another dozen, there's no one
Exactly,
policing that. So we're not that bad off. It's a little inconvenient, but we're not that bad off. During
right.
World War II, you
Yeah,
went into the grocery store, you spent your ration, you're not getting another ration for a week or two.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's what I mean. We think it's bad. We don't know what's bad. And that's why I do love, like you said, the history of how bad it was in Germany and why those notes exist. And when you start studying the history there, it puts perspective, I guess, perspective in our modern times by looking backwards.
yes.
And I'll probably cut all of this out because it has nothing to do with fancies, but it does have to do with something really cool, which is history.
Like they used to burn these things to stay warm.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
dude, that hits hard.
Yeah.
Because I grew up with a fireplace.
Yep. So did I. So did
and
I. Yeah.
and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Because they
We
literally had them by the wheelbarrow loads.
I'm not surprised. People just they were in such need that yeah, the things were worthless. It's like let's just throw them in to stay warm. It's just crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah.
throw any of this out. This is good stuff.
Here's a good topic since we're talking about some foreign notes. Let's talk about fancies on world banknotes. I know I have a couple that are from Canada,
Mhm.
and I just kind of picked them up for fun. Well, one I picked up because I wanted the note, and it just so happened to be a repeater on a 1917 $1 Canadian note. It's a 060606, but a lot of world notes they only have 6-digit serial numbers,
Yeah, exactly.
which we kind of touched on before. I should say you touched on before, with rarity, because there's a lot of old US notes that are similar with those with the smaller serial numbers. So how do you feel about the fancies on world notes?
I like the weird stuff. I've mentioned North Africa and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They kind of fall in that category.
Yeah.
That doesn't do a whole lot for me, but man,
Right.
if I could get a fancy from like Iceland,
That would be cool. Those
yeah,
smaller, yeah. Because I think I'm trying to think the country. I think it's Bolivia, but I think it's wrong. I think that's wrong. But currently, I just looked it up. There is a solid sevens, 8-digit solid
mhm,
sevens on. I think it's Bolivia on eBay right now. But I'm just like not really that interested
yeah.
because it's a more modern note. It's not, it wouldn't fit into my collection. Um, but it is kind of cool, and it is
Well,
like if it was from Canada, yeah, I'd probably be all over it, but it would be going for
sure,
a heck of a lot
a
more
lot more. You know,
than that.
something neat I just thought of. It's some of the more readily available countries, like say maybe Venezuela,
Yeah.
um, even Brazil, Argentina, some of those South American countries, even Mexico. You could try to get a fancy within each denomination,
Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
not going to be out, hundreds and thousands of dollars. I
Yeah.
think you could probably swing it with Mexico because, man, they have such beautiful notes down there.
They do. Yeah.
Um,
I'm
just
actually
because,
doing it with the Canadian Bird series,
are you
which is from
nice?
the 80s. Yeah, the 80s. And I have a radar, a couple of radars actually, and a binary. And they didn't cost that much more than the collector value because
Exactly.
Canadians just they don't care about fancies like
Right, yo.
Americans do.
Well, that would be an avenue if you're wanting to save a buck, but you still want to maintain, fancies and everything. You can dive into the foreign world and
Yeah.
find some cool stuff. I've got a radar on the $100 trillion note from Zimbabwe.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
you could
That's
buy them
crazy.
off Amazon for
That's crazy.
$8 a piece. But
Oh,
when I
that's
had the
funny.
opportunity to buy that radar, the guy only wanted like $50 for it. But that's cool. That's
It is
cool to
cool.
me at least. I have a Civil War radar.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got one of those. But I just need to send you a bunch of pictures of all the weird
Yeah.
stuff that no one really cares about.
Right.
Just they're not
But
super
it's cool.
valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But you
just
don't see them.
no, you don't see them,
Yeah.
which leads to the whole, well, it's very rare. I mean,
Right.
those notes are very, very rare, but they don't demand a lot of value.
Right.
There's supply
Exactly.
and demand.
Yes. that's the thing, and the popularity of the note, the popularity of the country, yeah, all of that. But I do agree with you. If some fancy on like an Icelandic note would be cool. We didn't actually talk about that. You can find
Yeah,
fancies still
yeah,
today if you're doing strap searches. So
yeah.
real fancies, that is, like real radars and real repeaters.
You know, just here kind of leads to the rarity of it. You've got $1,000. You take it to the bank and say, "I'd like ones." They look at you really weird,
Yeah,
but they can't say no, and
right,
they give you ones, and you need to go to a different bank every 2 or 3 days.
right.
And then you'll go through those and look for those fancies. In doing that, say I've went through 6 or 50,000 notes,
Yep,
I found a radar,
yep.
I found a double quad, and
Yep.
I found a couple of repeaters.
That's cool.
That's
That's
it,
cool. Yeah.
and Silver Surfer, I'm not gonna give away his location or anything. We'll just say
Right.
he's in a more metropolitan type area
Yeah.
where there's a lot more money exchange because 'cause I'm in podunk rural Arkansas here. Um, he had better luck with all that
Yeah. Yeah.
and stuff, and it just kinda leads to, well, there's more money changing hands.
That's true. That makes sense too. Yeah, I actually Dennis Huff and I gave him
Yeah.
some just $1 silver certificates circulated. Not they're worth basically $1, and we traded for, and he gave me some fancies that he found in
Yeah.
his strap searches. Some of them really cool, some of them radars, some of them repeaters, and then some binaries. They weren't true binaries, but they were binaries, which is cool that he found them. So yeah, you can absolutely find stuff. And to that point too is, when you do find a community, you can do some trading. You
Yeah, of
can do some
course.
trading and stuff like that. So that's fun.
Dennis was man, I miss that guy.
Yeah.
So, Dennis, he was always fun. We emailed. We never really talked on the phone, but we emailed back and forth, every other day or so, and I would randomly have envelopes show up
Yeah.
from Dennis, and it would be like, "Here's a radar I found 6 weeks ago," going through, and he told me the whole backstory on it. He had such cool handwriting.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
he all of his notes, I have all of his letters he wrote to me. Still, I
That's
think
cool.
there's 4 of them, and he probably sent me 5 or 6 notes, and they're all bundled up together with
Yeah.
those notes, and with the handwritten letters in an envelope, and I have it sealed.
That's cool.
It's just like, this dude didn't have to do that at all,
Nope.
and he was just a real genuine guy, and just what a mammoth person in the community.
Absolutely.
Like the if you guys haven't watched the round table with Dennis,
Yeah. Is it
that's the
number?
pinnacle of the round table at this
Yeah.
point, I think.
Is it number 3? It's one of the
It's
earlier ones.
I think it's 4 or 5. It's
4 or
right through
5.
there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Well
yeah,
worth it.
my
Yeah.
gosh, that guy's collection, he had
Yeah.
amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not into just basic notes, I'm into fancies. I saw some of his stuff and I thought, "Oh, man,
Yeah.
this is a one of one any way you look at it," you
Yeah.
know?
The error notes he had,
The air, like, you hear the
incredible.
term unicorn, like,
Yeah.
he had some
Yeah.
true unicorn notes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, just this, yeah, just phenomenal. Phenomenal guy. All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up there. And like I said, I'm more than happy to do this again with you, Dustin. I know it took like 6 months, but we got here. We got here. We arrived. All right. Well, thank you, Dustin. And folks, until Dustin and I see you again, I hope you all do well and continue to enjoy this great hobby. All right,
Definitely.
folks.
Take
Take
care.
care.